the game is started, we are reducing the lives when the can hits the shark. However, the lives are being reduced by more than 1 when the can hits the shark. The reason for this problem, or what we call a bug, is that when I open the can, the logic says that if it is touching the shark, it will change the lives by 1 and then broadcast can hit shark. What we want to do is that when the can hits the shark, we want to change the lives, but we want to also change the location of the can. In this way, it will not keep hitting the shark until the shark is located to another place on the screen. To do this, I'm just going to copy the go to XY, random. This code moves the can to a random location on the screen on the x-axis, so somewhere up here, but at y 200. Let me test the game again. I'm actually going to full screen first. Okay, as you can see, lives is now just being decreased by just 1 when the can hits the shark. So this problem seems to have been solved. I now would like to add an ending part to the game, so that when the number of lives reaches 0, the game ends. The game should also end when the when the score reaches 200. In the stage area, I have added 2 backgrounds, a winning screen and a losing screen. The winning screen will be displayed when the player hits 200 points, and the losing screen will be displayed when the number of lives is reduced to 0. The way I'm going to solve this is as follows. I'm going to the can. The can is the sprite which reduces the number of lives. So in the can area, I'm going to add an if statement just after the lives are reduced, and I'm going to say if the number of lives is 0, then I want to broadcast end game. So the idea is this, as follows. First I change the lives. As soon as I change the lives, I will check whether the number of lives available is 0. If it is 0, then I will broadcast end game. I am broadcasting because I want another sprite to do something. In this case, it will be the stage. I want this stage to change the background of the game. So I'm taking this code block and I'm moving it to just after the change lives by 1. So now the logic will be that if the can is touching the shark, it will change the number of lives by -1. Then it will check if the lives is 0, and if it is, it will just broadcast end game. I'm going to do the same thing for the shark. This time I want to check whether the number of points has reached 200, which was our ending condition. So I'm going to the shark. I can see this code when I receive hit by shark, so when the fish hits the shark, change the score by 10, and then it's switching the costume to open mouth and close mouth so that it animates the shark. Now I'm going to add code here so that if the score reaches 200, then we actually call end game. So again, I'm going to use an if statement. I'm going to check whether the score is 200, so I'm going to the operators. Then I'm going to the variables, getting the score. So if the score is 200, then again I want to broadcast endgame. This piece of code I am putting in just after the change score. This is fine. However, although we're broadcasting endgame, the stage is not handling the endgame. So now I change to this stage area, and I'm going to add code. When I receive endgame, I want to change the background. So again, I'm going to use an if statement because I want to check whether the game has been won or the game has been lost. Rather than using a normal if statement, this time I'm going to use an if-else statement. The if-else statement will allow me to run some code if the condition is true, and another piece of code if the condition is false. In our case, I want to check whether the game has been won or lost. So again, I'm going to do operators. The game would have been won if the lives is greater than 0. If the lives is less than 0, then the game is lost. So I'm choosing this condition now, the greater than, and I'm going to say if lives is greater than 0, then I want the game has been won. Now, in the backgrounds, I have a win screen. I want to display that. So in the scripts, I'm going to the looks, switch background to win screen, and again switch background to lose screen if the lives is not greater than 0, so it must be 0. I can run this, switching to full screen first. I'm going to try to okay, the number of lives has just been turned to 1. Boom. And I get the lose screen. You need to watch out for the cans. It's a hard life out there. The problem that I'm seeing now is that the game is still being played even though we've arrived to the end. So I need to solve this. The way I'm going to solve it is as follows. I'm going to add a new variable, which I will also be using at a later stage, which I'm going to call level. The level will allow me to later on also add different sprites to the game depending on which level I am in. I'm going to set level initially to 0. When the game starts, I want to change the level to 1. When I receive endgame, I am going to change the level to 0 again. This will tell the game that right now I am in level 0, so it should not be played. I am now switching to all the sprites, starting with the shark. If I look at the code for the shark, it is saying that when the green flag is clicked, so when I start, it is going into a forever loop, running this piece of code forever, and it's checking whether I press the right or up arrow to do something with the shark. I'm going to change this piece of code so that instead of the forever loop, I use a special loop, which is the forever if. The forever if is exactly like the forever loop. However, it will check whether a condition is true before running this piece of code. Now in my case, I want to check that the level is not 0, because if the level is 0, then it should actually hide. So operators, I'm going to the variables again. I want to check the level. 0. So if the level is 0, actually this is wrong, if the level is not 0, so I'm going to delete this, operators, if level is greater than 0, then I want to run this piece of code, so I'm just going to move all this to here, and I'll remove the forever and move it to there. So now the movement of the shark will only work if the level is greater than 0, so if we are in the playable part of the game. I'm doing the same thing for the fish and for the can. So for the fish, this is the forever loop for the fish, so again I'm going to go to the control area, finding a forever if, operators, checking if the level is greater than 0, and if it is greater than 0, I'm going to move this piece of code there, removing the forever and replacing it with a forever if. Do the same thing with the can, which is the last one. Forever if again, if level is greater than 0, then I want all this code there, and the old forever I'm going to delete. Let's try it out. Okay, the game has ended. The sprites are not moving, however they are still visible. So to solve that, I am going to the control area, and I'm going to add a code for each of the sprites, which says when I receive endgame, hide. This will actually hide the sprites again. So this part of the code will stop the sprites from working, whilst this part of the code will actually hide the sprites when the game has ended. Since I'm hiding the sprites, I want to show the sprites when I start the game, so I'm just going to add a show block there. Again, I have to repeat this for all the sprites. So go to this shark, I'm going to put a show here when I start, and I'm going to add a new block when I receive endgame. I want to hide. And finally I'm doing this for the fish as well. So when I receive endgame, I want the fish to hide, but I want the fish to be shown when we start the game.